He's talking about the secret knowledge, but mind keeps the soul prisoner. We are slaves to our acts. Page 53. That is the whole problem of man. What should he trust? Does he trust his own surface understanding? Usually that has been the guide for a long time, this surface mind. In our daily life, in all our actions, reason, mind, these have been telling us what to do, where to go, how to be. But the spirit inside is not even, recognized. Man is not just a mind, life and body. Within him there is another presence. This presence is forgotten. That is the soul, that is the real person. There is a surface soul which can slowly become totally, you might say, congealed in the form of the ego. So, mind keeps the soul prisoner.
What does congeal mean?
Congealed is solidified. Yeah? Sorry?
Spelling of congeal?
Congealed.
To solidify.
Huh?
To solidify.
It becomes frozen. You don't want to make ice cream. The milk has to congeal. And the mind gets so accustomed to being our teacher and our guide that the soul remains not only forgotten. There are moments where there are, you might say, flashes, moments of intuitive connections with the inner presence inside us. These are not accepted. You say you're imagining, there is no such thing. Reason tells you this is the truth, so follow that. That is why we cannot free our gaze to reach wisdom's sum. Mind has no wisdom. It has its ability to draw its own conclusions. Therefore, man is still a small, very small creature, inherited of the brief animal mind. Yes, he has moved ahead, a little ahead from the animal, in the sense that the animal does not use or does not need to use abstract thinking. The animal uses very practical thinking, it does. It knows where to go to get its food. But to think for the sake of thinking and say, what is the reason for food, this is not a question the animal usually asks. This is what man can do. But because we are so dependent on this, and part of it is what is science. This is science. This is also medicine. But in all these things, one has to have intuition. That's why, if you are talking of medicine, in the ancient times, those who were really, they had knowledge of the body, they had to be rishis, They were not just thinkers, not experimenters. They have to have a connection with an inner light. Only then can the outer be affected. And that is why it is so important for those of you who are also into the world of science and medicine, not to forget that there has to be constantly a reference to that inner presence. We have to take the support naturally of all our outer knowledge, but not rely entirely on that. Because otherwise, man, still a child in nature's mighty hands, because nature is molding and shaping, she has brought out from the original unconscious matter. Beings, forces, plants, animals, man, they are all slowly made to move up the incline of consciousness, gradually. But he's still connected with the lower creation. Therefore, his vision is like that of the animal, in the succession of moments lives. We don't see the whole, we see the part. This is what has happened, so this should be the consequence. And it has its, you might say, value, validity, up to a point. But that is not the whole truth. That is why, to a changing present is his narrow right. Because it's a repetition of the old. It keeps on changing. Nothing stands still. But we keep on repeating the same thinkings, the same movements, the same reactions, the same approach to everything. It's just a kind of, you might say, like the earth turning in the same circle, the same circuit. There is no breaking into another level of consciousness or another level of manifestation. That is why, to a changing present is his narrow right. Human beings today are not so essentially different from the human beings of 5,000 years ago or 10,000 years ago. In fact, 5,000 years ago they were far more spiritual. The mind had not yet taken full control. His memory stares back at a phantom past. The future flees before him as he moves. The present is a very difficult thing to explain because he stands on the basis of the past. The past is gone. It has no body. It has only some kind of an outline of, you might say, memories that remain in the past. This was like this, so now it should be like this. But actually the past is dead. The future has not yet taken shape. Then where does he stand? There is no past, there is no future, yet. And the present is already past before we have stopped talking about it. It has moved. So that has been always, for thinkers and philosophers, the paradox of time. What is time? You can't live outside time. There is no manifestation outside time. You go beyond time, you go into the eternal, the Brahman, the nameless, shapeless Brahman. But if you are living in the world of time, you are living in the world of something that is unstable, insecure. The past cannot give you enough support. It is really full of fallibles, mistakes. And we could repeat the same mistakes. The future is a guesswork. We have no direct knowledge of. The prophet has it, the seer has it, but the man of reason does not. So the future flees before him as he moves. He sees imagined garments, not a face. He sees outlines, like a phantom. Is he really sure that these outlines are going to be manifested in our developing future life? You can have a dream, you can have a hope, you can have an idea, but you cannot guarantee that this is what things will look like in the future. The face is the presence. We see outlines and we are naturally susceptible to making mistakes. Armed with a limited, precarious strength. So how does man manage? How does he cope? He has a certain amount of light. Mind is an instrument of light, no doubt. It is a partial light. It's not a very brilliant light, but still a light. Armed with a limited, precarious strength, he saves his fruits of work from adverse chance. This is what memory does. This is what we do in our libraries and archives. We try to save whatever we have We make collections and we make all kinds of, you might say, data that you put down in a certain sequence, thinking that that is what will be your guide in the future. It's not just in the domain of science, in the domain of psychology, in the domain of thought, in the domain of, fortunately, not art. There is sometimes the opening to something which is a breakthrough. That is where the poet is a seer. He's not a thinker. If the poet is a thinker, he's not a poet. If the artist captures just the outer forms of things, then he is not truly an artist. As Sri Aurobindo says, the artist or the poet presents, represents, and presents that which is not visible on the surface. To bring out that which is not evident on the surface. To put down things that are evident, it doesn't require anything, a special, capacity or quality. It just requires a certain opening. A mastery of language, a mastery of form, a mastery of technique, but that's not enough. So this is what he has today. He saves his fruits of work from adverse chance. That's not just because he can make a library, but he repeats. This is memory. You learn from your mistakes. You say, don't do it again. Last time this happened, this is what happened to you, this is how you suffered, so don't make the same mistake again. Who knows? We don't know exactly where we are heading. We don't realize often even suffering can become a launching pad to a new development of our inner faculties and capacities. We love to draw our conclusions on the basis of a certain amount of knowledge, which, it's true, all our learning and all our training has given us. And that is the arrogance of mind. Therefore, he waits to see. He saves his fruits of work from adverse chance. A struggling ignorance is his wisdom's mate. So there is always this half light, half darkness. You want to suppress wisdom as ignorance as much as you can. You learn, you do research, you make analysis, and you arrive somewhere a little, you might say, ahead of the past. You have gone forward just a little bit. But then that same thing may become the starting point of a path that can lead you to a greater error. Who knows? We have to see. It's always that. He waits to see the consequence of his acts. Always you have to see. You can't be certain. Let's see where things go. Let's see how things shape up. This is the wisest thing you can do. Archana will give me a medicine and say, let's see if it works or not. It's always that. It's said with a great deal of goodwill. But there is no certitude. And what mind wants is certitude. And we have not got certitude. Mind is incapable of certitude. It is not exactly guesswork. There is it has taken a little foothold on the field of knowledge. But that doesn't make it all knowing. He waits to see the consequence of his acts. He waits to weigh the certitude of his thoughts. He's never sure. And that is the whole problem. Because thought wants only certitude. And that's the one thing it doesn't have. Mind does not have the power of experience. The body has, the heart has, the vital has, the higher visions have. the senses have, but not logic, not reason. And that's the only part that seeks consciously for knowledge and is never sure that what it has is knowledge. Sometimes you have to reverse all the things that you have gathered over the years and say, oh, now you have to start from square one. He waits to see the certitude of his thoughts. He knows not what he shall achieve or when. He knows not whether at last he shall survive or end like the mastodon and the sloth. The mastodon is the ancestor of the elephant. It's not there anymore, but the elephant is still there. And the sloth, unfortunately, has not gone. Sri Aurobindo was hoping. Sloth is not just an animal that is extremely dull and slow, but we are still filled with sloth. In us, our nature, in our character, in our behavior, we are very close to the sloth even today. And he knows not whether all these elements of dullness and heaviness and slowness shall disappear from our nature. Inertia. These are the things that, inertia is the characteristic that ties us to these things. And perish from the earth where he was king. This is what man is not sure. Shall he too have to go? Man is the ruler of the world today. And Mother has said it very clearly. If we do not collaborate from the, you might say, in the participation of the manifestation of the new consciousness, for this you have to give up, first of all, your ego, offer yourself to the divine, let the divine take over. You can't take over your whole nature, your whole being. If you are completely in the hands of mind, this cannot happen. It is always something that is drawing back. And if man therefore refuses, man shall have to be replaced by the Superman. The supramental being is not necessarily a continuation of the human being. If the human being wants to, then it is possible. So, if only humanity consented to be spiritualized and take the rule of the spirit above the rule of mind, then something can happen. This is a very beautiful talk she gave in the playground, if only. It's almost touching, it's so sad because so much grace, help, guidance is there. If all we need to do is turn to it, offer ourselves, and that grace will take us by the hand and take us forward. But we don't. We want the grace to act according to our notions of what it or she should do. I can't put down rules and standards. Mother should say this and Sri Aurobindo should do that, and then only I think I will accept them. This is the whole arrogance of the mental ego. It's a very strong ego. But that is not what man has been created for. Man is basically a projection of the possibility of the divine in the earth consciousness, manifesting itself as man. The human becomes an expression of the divine. The avatar is that. The divine has become human so that the human can become divine. But we have to collaborate. We have to accept. For that, first we have to surrender ourselves. He is ignorant of his high and splendid fate. Only the immortal, because what is our future? We don't even know. So who knows what the future is? So here we'll follow a page where he describes what he calls the immortals. The immortals are not what we may call the gods. What are gods? They are emanations, projections of the Supreme. You can take the notion of love, truth, power, knowledge, peace, or harmony. All these are principles that are projecting like the rays projecting in all directions from the sun. They remain. It is because they are there, because there is something in the universe that is there in the atmosphere above the mind. Though I don't see it, it is there. It is this that tells you at some point, I thought I was on the right path, but I am not now. Because that force, say of light, does not come down to my level. I have to reach up to its level. It will not move from its standard. Truth is not what I understand. Only the immortals, who are expressions, emanations of the divine, they don't have any ego. They don't have any choice. They are just projections of the divine will. So, on their deathless heights, dwelling beyond the walls of time and space, these are universal principles. They were always there, they will always be there. Because the principle, for instance, of beauty does not depend on how beautiful a shape you make when you paint a picture. It is a principle that pre-exists what you made. The need for joy, the need for love, all these pre-exist before, because of them you feel the need. They don't come down to your level, they exist. Even if I don't know how to love, the principle of love is beyond me. It is there, it is always there. These are all expressions of the divine. So, dwelling beyond the walls of time and space, masters of living, it is because they are there, they guide us without guiding, in a sense, because it's like a standard. They are all standards of perfection. Each one has its own mode of perfection. And these standards of living are, he calls them masters of living. So you live up to that. For instance, if you want something, you don't want it imperfectly. You want perfection. Nobody has perfection. Nobody knows what perfection is. But everyone desires perfection, is dissatisfied with imperfection. It is as if something in us says, no, this is not right, this is not good enough, this is not what I really am aiming for. What am I aiming for? I have never really reached. And this is what helps us to go forward in the story of evolution. Masters of living, free from the bonds of thought. Perfection, for instance, is not something that I can logically define. Today's perfection is you have to be this, this, this. Tomorrow you say, no, you have to go much further. This is not enough. Therefore, they are overseers of fate and chance and will. He uses 3 words. They are all aspects of different levels of the same truth on different in our perception. What the divine will plans, decides, is how much of that can I grasp? That becomes my fate. And if I can't even grasp it, it will take me up. It will help me to some extent. For instance, the divine will is at work in all things. The Shakti is at work in all things. Evolution is at work, and it is to rise from total unconsciousness to total consciousness. I don't have total consciousness. I still have a lot of unconsciousness. So it is as if that force is lifting, molding, shaping me. In me, there is an acceptance of this shaping and molding of the force. There is a resistance also. I fight back because I say it's too difficult, you are hurting me. And that is why man is trapped in his fate, because of the resistance. The divine is present inside all of us. All of us are undivine on the outside. And so there is this sense of something that fights against that inner presence inside us. Sometimes there is an opening almost unknown to us because that presence is always there. You call it a chance. But there are 3 aspects of the same thing. There is a force that is at work. no matter whether we understand it or not. That will never withdraws, it is always there. But sometimes you say, I don't believe it. Whether I believe it or not, the life force is flowing in me. It's not my life force, it is a universal life force. It has taken hold of my instrument. My instrument is weak. It can't hold on to that force. It may break down. It does. But the force continues. So this is the interplay of the force of the divine energy and the resistance of the unconscious being. Which is why we are always caught between this and we have our fate. We have to change our standards and move on to another level. If I do it by my own effort, then this is the effort of the tapasvi, of the jnani. If I do it with the effort of love and devotion and surrender, and I say to the divine, you do it for me, I am yours, I don't belong to myself. You take up charge of my life. That is shorter, simpler, not easier, because it has to be total abolition of the ego, which is extremely difficult. So these masters of living who are overseers, they see to it that this play goes on, the interplay of these forces, of the advance of the conscious manifestation, of the resistance to that conscious manifestation, and experts of the theorem of world need, as if it is put into a very, you might say, clear, well worked out plan. The world need is what? What does man really want? He wants God, light, freedom, immortality. He doesn't have any of them, but he wants. That is why they see to it that this man wanting these things means there is something inside that is like a bud that is trying to open. That bud is the idea, the divine presence. Like before you do something, your mind has an idea. And then you put that idea into expression. So these theorem of the world need can see the idea. As if the divine plan. There is a world of above our world, where it is as if the divine has made a whole plan and slowly projects that into the play of manifestation progressively. So this idea works its way forward. The might that change time's course. Gradually there is a change. It's not true that we have not changed over the thousands of years that have gone before. We have. There has been an acceptance of that we can become so much more than what we are. Come maned with light from undiscovered worlds. These overseers, they come. These forces, these principles, they come. Principles, as we said, of the divine play, of light, joy, truth, power, love, peace, beauty. All these are like the horses, energies. They are at work slowly. They are fighting against the opposite, you might say, the opponent inertia, resistance, ignorance, attachment to our laziness, attachment to our present state, our continuous argument to say, I am a human being, I am not a God. I am a God, in the making. But just like the clay or the metal will resist the hand of the sculptor, and only then the sculptor can make a very beautiful shape, because there is resistance. If the clay did not resist at all, there would be no shape at all. So metal of man has this power of quiet strength which is hidden in the resistance. So, because of that, there is this play of forces. Here, while the world toils on with its deep, blind heart, the galloping hooves of the unforeseen event, they come maned with light. The horses, the hooves, the energy, the play of force. You get the image of the chariot, you get the suggestion of the charioteer behind the horses, the guidance that is there. So the galloping hooves of the unforeseen event, which unforeseen in the sense beyond the grasp of mind. You foresee a little with your mental, you expand your understanding and you say, oh, this is like this, then it should be like that. Slowly we are moving perhaps in that direction. To some extent there is some truth in that, but we can't see the whole. There are so many parts of the play of forces that I cannot see as long as I depend wholly on my seeing, on my understanding. But the forces, the horses will break down all opposition and resistance. If I don't participate in the change, then I shall be forced by these beings to change, or I shall be eliminated. Those who resist, these are the great asuras. They shall be eliminated, they will not stay. So bearing the superhuman rider near and impassive to earth's din and startled cry, you get the new avatar who comes riding. You get the image of Kalki, for instance. He breaks down. And these manifestations of the force taking earth is startled. Those who, the few, for instance, who felt a little of the descent of the supramental consciousness in 1956, for instance, they were startled. Something they couldn't quite explain was happening. They couldn't understand how. Mother describes this. These forces will come, they will shape you or they will break you. And having done their work, they will go back to the source from which they were sent down. They are simply servants of the divine, projections of His will. They don't say, don't hurt human beings, they are so unfortunate, they are so weak, please protect them. No. They may seem, therefore, there is one aspect of the divine where the gods seem to be pitiless or totally indifferent. The work has to be done for the best. For that, if I have to break or shave or make the present world suffer, well, so be it. And so that is why the more the pressure of the change comes from above, the more the world reacts as it is seeming to react today. With resistance, with violence, with complete rejection of the divine. There is no guarantee that we shall really march ahead. If we do not march ahead, we shall be thrown out. So they come impassive to the earth's din and startled cry, return to the silence of the hills of God. As if they've come down from the heights. They come down, they do their work, they go back. As lightning leaps, as thunder sweeps, they pass. The lightning flashes, the thunder announces a storm, a change. It can destroy. Cyclones are not pleasant always. They pass and leave their mark on the trampled breast of life. So this is where he gives us a notion of the divine forces that are not exactly what our conventional thinking says, God's energies. is full of compassion and kindness, and he will help you in your difficulty. He is helping you in your difficulty by destroying you, perhaps. Destroying your present state, by forcing you to make a final choice. You have to choose on whose side you are. It is stern, it is harsh. That is also part of the divine grace. Above the world creators stand. In the phenomenon, see its mystic source. Phenomenon is what is happening on the outside. We see what is happening, manifestation of all kinds of events and shapes and forms and activities and energies that are there. Where does it all come from? Even the physical world, it is full of energy. There is energy in the atom, there is energy in the air, there is energy in everything. But where is the source of that energy? How did it come? That we fail to understand. But having accepted that there is energy in the atom or there is energy in matter, we make use of it. We make that the starting point for our development. But the source is not taken into account because we can't see it, we can't realize where it all comes from. These, instead, on the other hand, these forces, these, you might say, masters of living, these heed not the deceiving outward play. We are deceived by the outer play. They are not deceived by the outer play. They turn not to the moment's busy tramp, just like we do. We are impressed by this moment, that event, that happening. It affects us. It makes us create a certain decision or opinion. They don't have an opinion. They say, we have been asked to do this, we will do it, that's all. It's all on every plane actually, even on the most physical, vital plane. I don't know if you know that little, very sweet story of mother when she was in Algeria, and Algeria is naturally near the equator, it's quite warm, and she had a room, and outside there were some hills, and they had gone and planted some pine trees. And that house where she was staying was a beautiful little house with everything was the wooden floor and the wooden doors and windows, and it's very, very beautiful. One day she woke up and she saw tiny little forces, beings, and they were forces of the snow. And she said, where have you come from? But you called us, that's why we've come. Where did I call you? What did he call you? You have planted pine trees. You have planted fir trees. Fir trees invite the snow. So we have one. Whether it's good, no, please go. You're spoiling the floor because you're melting in the heat. It's just that they don't think, they don't make any kind of you might say calculations. You called and we came. So they heed not to deceiving. They turn not to the moment's busy tramp, but listen with the still patience of the unborn. The unborn are the gods, Ajata. The unborn is the not yet manifested. It has both meanings. That which is not yet manifested, that which has always been there before manifestation. So that is why they know patience. The gods are patient. For the slow footsteps of far destiny, approaching through huge distances of time, unmarked by the eye that sees effect and cause. The eye that sees effect and cause is the eye of reason. Law of causality. This is so, this should be the consequence. They don't think, they don't measure things on that level. Unheard mid the clamor of the human plane. So they belong to that world. So this is there one aspect of the truth. But slowly he is building up in this canto the whole truth, the presentation of the whole truth. So we have to slowly come out of our dependence even on the mental understanding of what we have. Today we're reading Savitri with our minds. Slowly we have to replace it with a wider mind, and then a still wider mind, and then no mind at all. Just let the whole lines sink and work the way inside us. But if from the beginning you have to use a little bit of your mind, otherwise you can't proceed. Okay?
10,000 years, that time the doctors, the surgeons, they were connected to the inner being. And
They were seekers of true knowledge. So that was part of the yoga of jnana. They knew that without spiritual knowledge you cannot have any kind of mastery over the external field. They knew the presence of the divine in the external field. Whereas today, knowledge of the external field has been so well structured and developed that the absolute need is not felt. But if you are a really great scientist or a great doctor, you know that you are not the one who has the knowledge. Some other being is there, some other source with which you have to connect. You have to connect with that source, and only then will you be able to do the work as it should be done. Even Einstein says it. He is one of the superior minds that the earth has known, but it's that same knowledge. That has to be that. But if you are a lesser scientist, most people are not Einsteins, but they do their MSc and so on and so forth. They rely on their own understanding. And they think they know a lot. But it's just a little droplet on the ocean of knowledge. It's nothing. And that's why it keeps on moving.
But are we going back then? Because at that time, all our the doctors or whoever they were, as we look back, that they were the true seekers of this. And today we are not. Are we going back, or how is the evolution happening? That
It's not that we move in a straight line, does it? Nothing moves in a straight line. You go up, you go down, you go forward. If it's a cycle, it's circular. And Sri Aurobindo calls it not just a cycle, but a vertical spiral. You go up, you go down, and you take up from below the things that were earlier not really recognized, take them up again to go higher than before, so that you plunge lower than before, and this keeps on in a growing vertical spiral. Part of the human cycle. It's not that you move in a straight line. Nothing in nature moves in a straight line. The past is necessarily great. The future is necessarily great. Is the past the author of the future, or is the future the author of the past? What is the future? That is what has perhaps been, that has always been there, and it is because of that that all our past is moving towards that future. It's like the end of the road. The end of the road or the end of the story is there before the story begins. You want to write a story, you say, I'll say it for this. That goal is there. What is your goal? It all depends on that. So, the goal is divinity. If your goal is divinity, then you realize that through long, long time, in one way or another, it is towards that we are moving. It's not that we are greater than the past. It's not that we are lesser than the past. We are part of a long play of development. Sometimes it goes forward, sometimes it seems to go down. It goes down so that it can go higher than before. part of the plan.
So, what you're saying is that it is predetermined. Huh? When you say the future,
Yes, it's there. It's predetermined. Everything is predetermined in the Supreme. You see, not your knowledge. Your knowledge is just a continuous process of discovery. This step will take you to the next step. What's the next step after that? You don't know the end of the road. That end is what is really the final determination. And that predetermination that Sri Aurobindo speaks of is not contrary to freedom. Follow? It sounds a little weird, but it's... Freely you move into that.
You have to make a mind so wide, so subtle to even get a rasa of what these things.
Because we are weak, so we today I can't walk very well without the walker. It is my security, it is my support. Well, there are many walkers man uses in his mind, in his life, in his feelings, in his, especially like morality. The laws of morality, the laws of society, all these have become structured, fixed, this. So sometimes there are moments where all this is wiped off. Revolutions come. Okay?